Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, we from Group 6 will present the sixth material about teaching reading. Previously, let me introduce the members of Group 6. I'm Andina, Prisma, Anugrah, Putri as the first speaker. Then Sarah Azizah M.M as the second speaker. The third speaker is Desi Rahayu. The fourth speaker is Ode M.M. And the last speaker is Dia. Okay, here's our outline. First, we will discuss extensive and intensive reading, which contains extensive reading, intensive reading, the role of the teacher, intensive reading, vocabulary questions, and intensive reading leading students. Second, we will discuss about reading lesson sequence that have examples of reading sequence in them. Okay. Just go to the first material about extensive and intensive reading. Whereas with the former, a teacher encouraged students to choose for themselves what they read to do so for pleasure and general language improvement. The latter is often teacher chosen and directed. It is designed to enable students to develop specific receptive skills such as reading for kids or general understanding, often called skimming, reading for specific information, often called scanning, reading for detailed comprehension, or reading for inference, what is behind the words. Okay, extensive reading. We have discussed the importance of extensive reading for the development of our students' word recognition and for their improvement as the readers overall. But it is not enough to tell students to read a lot. We need to offer them a program which includes appropriate materials, guidance, tasks, and facilities, such as permanent or portable libraries of books. These contents for material, the first one is extensive reading materials. One of the fundamental conditions of a successful extensive reading program is that students should be reading material which they can understand. If they are struggling to understand every word, they can hardly be reading for pleasure. The main goal of this activity is their best. Despite the limitation on the language, such books can speak to the reader through the creation of atmosphere and or compelling plot lines. Consider, for example, the following short extract from the second chapter of a level 1, or elementary murder mystery of our adult. And then the second one is setting up a library. In order to set up an extensive reading program, we need to put up a library of stable books. Although this might appear costly, it will be money well spent. If necessary, we should persuade our schools and institutions to provide such funds and or raise money through other sources. The second one is the role of the teacher in extensive reading programs. Most students will not do a lot of extensive reading by themselves unless they are encouraged to do so by their teachers. Clearly then, our role is crucial. We need to promote reading and by our own, especially of reading as a valid occupation. Persuade students of its benefits. And then the last one is extensive reading task. Because students should be allowed to choose their own reading text, following their own likes and interests, they will not all be reading the same text at once. For this reason, and because we want to prompt students to keep reading, we should encourage them to report back on their reading in a number of ways. I think that's all from me. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Azizah. I want to explain about intensive reading, the role of the teacher, and the vocabulary question. Firstly, do you know what is intensive reading? Intensive reading is a reading method in which students are expected to read short text carefully and deeply so as to gain maximum understanding. In order for students to be enthusiastic about reading in class, we need to work to generate interest topics and assignments. However, there is a further role we need to take when asking students to read intensively. The first is organizer. The teachers need to tell students exactly what their reading purpose is Gives them clear instruction about how to achieve it and explain how long they have to do this. The second one is observer. When we as the teacher ask students to read on their own, we need to give them space to do it. This means refraining from interrupting the reading, though the temptation might be to add more information or instructions. While students are reading, the teachers can observe their progress since this will give the teachers valuable information about how well they are doing individually and collectively. The third is feedback organizer. When students have completed tasks, the teachers can lead a feedback session to check that they have completed it successfully. The teacher may start by having them compare their answer in pairs and then ask for answer from the class in general or from pairs in particular. The last one is prompter. When students have read a text, the teacher can prompt them to notice language features within it. To encourage intensive reading of students, the teacher can give students the opportunity to ask questions about vocabulary. A word of caution needs to be added here. If students ask for the meaning of all the words they do not know, and given some of the problems inherent in the explaining of different word meanings, the majority of a lesson may be taken up in this way. Therefore, the teacher can divide the amount of time as follows. The first is time limit. Example is the teacher gives 5 minutes for vocabulary inquiry. The second one is word or phrase limit. The teacher only accepts 5 until 8 questions about words or phrases. The last is meaning consensus. The teacher can get students to work together to search for and find word meanings.
Hello, my name is Desi Rahayu. My student number is 2010078. In here, I will explain about intensive reading and reading lesson sequences. First, I will explain advice about intensive reading, letting the student in. Intensive reading is a technique of serious reading to get information from a reading. Intensive reading is done by understanding in detail the content of accurate and critical reading in terms of fact, experience, and feelings. Students are far more likely to engage in text if they bring their feelings and knowledge to assignment, rather than simply responding to other people's ideas of what they should find. By letting them give voice if they wish to their feelings about what they have read, we are far more likely to perfect the Kandel factor than if we just work through a series of exercise. One of the things that can encourage students with one of the question is, do you like the text, with the intention that they can understand and enjoy the reading. Another way of letting the student in is to allow them to create their own comprehension tasks. A popular way to do this is to discuss the subject of the text with the class before they read. Another way that involves reading is to have students read different texts and then share the information they have gathered to put together a whole story called jigsaw reading. B. Reading lesson sequences. By having students read the gist of it and then having them read the text again for a more detailed understanding. They can start by identifying the topic of the text before quickly scanning the text to record specific information.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ode Mu'minatun Jaatsiyah, and I will continue to explanatory reading about a sample of reading sequences. Okay, the first examples focus reading to confirm expectations, skills predicting, reading for kids, reading for detailed comprehension, age adult, level intermediate. In this example, students predict to the content of the text not from a picture, but from a few tantalizing clues that are given from a phrase from the passage they will read. By missing the skill of speaking, listening, or reading, the students have had a rich language experience, and because they have had a chance to predict contents, listen, read and then discuss the text, they are likely to be very involved with the procedure. Example 2. The activity general reading, skill reading for kids, reading for detailed comprehension, age any level upper intermediate. Okay. Over 20 years ago, Mikhail Scott and his colleagues working at university level HSP students in Brazil designed a standard exercise which could be used by their students with any reading text. In their version, the questions were detailed and with the Portuguese. For general English, we can use same principle. We consider the following general question, like what the text about, who was written by, who was it written for, what the writer intentions, do you like and the next do you like the text. When the student have discussion they answer the general question, they can go back to the text to answer more detailed question. In whatever ways the text explore the use of the general question, ensure that students will approach it for the first read anyway in general ways. Of course, many texts can be used in this way, whether beginner or advanced students. Example 3, the activity modified clause text, skills reading for kids, reading for detailed comprehension, age teenage, level elementary. So, with the uh, example, the teenage students are going to read about snakes and snake charmers in Indian village. The teacher starts by asking students if they know any words about snakes and the people who play with the snake. Words like poison, poisonous, and snake charmers will be elicited. Students are now given the following text and asked to work with their colleague to see if they can fill the blanks as they read. The activity works assembly will because students are constantly trying to make sense of what they are seeing. They are searching for all and any of language they know to try to complete the blanks, and because we given them a bit more information each time, they gradually get the guess almost all the words. Somewhere between reading and a vocabulary practice, this activity is enjoyable and dynamic. The next example 4, the activity searching a topic, skill scanning, reading for guests, age any, level intermediate. And the following examples show how computers and internet can be used in class or in self-access of computer center to get students searching for information in an entirely realistic and enjoyable way.